What's up guys, it's Lauren and welcome back to my channel. And excuse the fact that I literally look like a rat. Like, I hate when my hair is up. I literally only put my hair up when I have practice or when I'm working, but it's freaking hot. And I was also wearing a tank top, but I put on this t-shirt because I thought it went well because we're talking about a serial killer today. So, anyways, in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys about Patrick Kearney. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And he is the trash bag murderer. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Patrick Kearney was born on September 24th, 1939 in East Los Angeles, and for the most part his family was pretty stable. He was the youngest of 3 kids and he had 2 older brothers, and as a kid he was very thin and feeble. At school, like most killers unfortunately had to go through, he was bullied and tormented. In fact, later on in the future, once he began these killings, he would choose his victims because of how they act, and if he saw similarities in the kids who bullied him, that is who he chose to kill. In the beginning, he was a reserved and quiet teenager, but eventually he began fantasizing about murders. He was employed by Hughes Aircraft as an engineer, and he was described as a model worker. And as an adult, he was only married once, but it did not last long before they got a divorce. In 1967, he moved to Redondo Beach, which is near the Los Angeles area, and he moved there with a younger man by the name of David Hill. The two fell in love, but their relationship consisted of many arguments, and it was 2 years before he moved in that Kearney committed his first murder in 1965. He had picked up a hitchhiker in Orange County, California, and killed him. However, his first confirmed murder was in 1968. He had moved to Culver City, California, and it happened about 1 year after the two, David and Kearney, moved in together. So when the two would get into an argument or any disagreement, Kearney would drive off. He would venture and look for any male hitchhikers or young men at gay bars to kill them. And physically, he didn't come across as the type of guy who would kill. Like, if you saw him in person, you probably wouldn't think he's intimidating. He could easily kill someone. He was only 5'5", he was slenderly built, and he just overall did not look like the average killer, I guess you could say. And he went after victims who were much larger than him. So you just would not pick him out of a crowd of people, if that makes sense. However, not only was he killing adults, he was also going after teenagers and children, and his youngest victim was Ronald Dean Smith, who was only 5 years old. He vanished in Lenox, California on August 24th, 1974, and his body was finally found on October 12th, 1974 in Riverside County. Then he killed 13-year-old Michael Craig McGee on June 16th, 1976. McGee was from Redondo Beach, California, and he had a decent-sized juvenile delinquency history. Kearney picked up McGee when he was hitchhiking from Lenox to Torrance, and the trip was about probably 9 miles. He supposedly made friends with McGee and actually offered to take him on a trip to Lake Elsinore. However, once, for some reason, Kearney just thought McGee was a threat, he killed him. He did it unexpectedly when McGee began bragging about his criminal conquests, and he would question Kearney and ask him where the burglar alarms were, if he had any, in the home, and where they were located, which is understandable. That's pretty suspicious. Another child victim was 8-year-old Merle Hondo Chase. He lived in Venice, California, and supposedly went missing on April 6, 1977. And he was reported riding his bike near Kearney's workplace. Kearney told authorities that he suffocated the boy and took the remains home with him. And then he supposedly dumped the body at the Angeles National Forest, and his body was found May 26, 1977. Before Chance's death, police actually looked to Kearney as a suspect for another murder. The 8-year-old was the last known victim of Kearney. However, the murder that led to his arrest was 17-year-old John LeMay. The murder happened on March 13, 1977. It was around 5:30 p.m. when he supposedly reported to a neighbor that he was going to Redondo Beach to meet up with a man by the name of Dave, who he had met at a local gym. This man was Kearney's lover, David Hill, and he had presented the address of Kearney's home to the boy. While LeMay got to the house, David was not there, but Kearney was, so he invited him in to watch TV while he waited. Kearney shot LeMay in the back of the head with his .22 Derringer, and he mutilated the corpse before throwing the remains in the desert. These remains were found March 18, 1977. Police had visited the Kearney house during the investigation, and not long after did they find out that he was in the presence of the two men. Kearney resigned from his job, and they ran off, they meaning David and himself, ran off to El Paso, Texas. I think that's how you pronounce it. And get this, their families tried to convince them to turn themselves in. They asked them to turn themselves in, and surprisingly they agreed, which, I don't know. There are just some, I just don't understand why you would just agree to turn yourself in if you have a chance of getting away with it. I mean, you turn yourself in, I don't care. Well, I would care if you didn't turn yourself in. I'm gonna stop talking about that. On July 1st, 1977, back in California, at 1:30 p.m., they went to the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. And they simply just recognized a poster with their faces on them that said, "Wanted," and said, "We're them." And their bail was set at $500,000 each. David Hill was 36 years old at the time they turned themselves in, but he was ultimately cleared. The police came to a decision that he wasn't involved in any of Kearney's acts, so he was released. He wasn't put in jail or anything, which I personally have mixed feelings about, because he might not have had anything to do with it, but I'm not 100% sure if he knew what his lover was doing, if he knew Kearney was killing and going on a killing spree, but if he did, that's a charge in and of itself. So maybe there was no proof that he knew, maybe he literally didn't know, but if he turned himself in with Kearney, obviously he had to have known something was up, if that makes any sense. And Kearney was completely cooperative. He admitted to 28 murders at first and then another 7 later on. And in place of the death penalty, he agreed to plead guilty, and he made a full-on confession. He was charged with 21 counts of murder, and 21 life sentences were given to him. And the police believed him and were convinced that he did commit those other 7 murders that he admitted to. However, there was no physical evidence to actually charge him with those murders. It was during his reign of terror in the 1970s that made his killing spree at its peak, and his strange urges were unexposed. A local grocery store owner by the name of Jerry Stevens said that Kearney came in and he had an odd obsession with knives. Or maybe not really an obsession, probably just more of an interest, but either way, he had an odd interest in knives. And he would buy butcher knives on a regular basis and supposedly would ask very unnerving questions about the type of steel made with those knives and the aspects of it. And Stevens described him as a loner with an eerie sense of quiet about him. Kearney was a necrophiliac, and his killings and methods and disposal were all consistent within one another, and it was actually only within the first few killings that he polished his MO. He perfected his techniques of being a gay pickup artist from his previous encounters in California with his killings. After targeting a victim either on the side of the highway or at a gay bar, he would shoot them in the temple above the ear with no warning whatsoever. And he kept the .22 Derringer pistol in his right hand while he drove with his left. And of course, he had to make sure he kept the vehicle at the speed limit so then suspicions would not arise, which seems like a given, but you'd be surprised. And he mainly went after men in the San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico areas. He was also fluent in Spanish, and Latin American culture was something that he knew quite a bit about. So he used this to his advantage to try to interact with more victims. And he had no choice but to utilize a scheme of overpowering his victims that was probable to fail. After killing his victims, Kearney would leave the body sitting up in the passenger seat, and then he would drive to a deserted area, and that is where he would sexually assault the corpse. After that, he would disfigure the bodies with a hacksaw, and he would dump them in just random places, whether it's the highway, it's like a literal dump site, it's a canyon, like anything like that. And now you might be wondering where the nickname the trash bag killer came from, and he would use trash bags to dispose of the bodies also, which, I mean, I feel like quite a few serial killers do that, but he got his nickname from it. And of course, sometimes he would get rid of them so they could be eaten by animals. And sometimes, as some serial killers do, he would drain the blood from the body to make sure the possibility of odors is minimum, and then he would wash the bodies before disposing of them. And this was to diminish the possibility of fingerprints or any evidence that could be used, like dry blood, for example, also. So then hopefully nothing could be traced back to him, which, I mean, he eventually turned himself in, so so much for that. And he would also occasionally physically abuse his victims post-mortem, so not just sexually, but physically. He claimed it was a healthy way to get rid of his pent-up anger inside, and he felt very overpowering while he did it. Just the thought of killing somebody and hurting someone that badly sexually excited him. Yeah. He later confessed to authorities that he experimented with a lot of the bodies because he was curious. He opened the stomach of one victim, and then on another one, he relocated the body to his bathroom, where he mutilated this body. He skinned it with an X-Acto knife. He then removed the bullet from the head so it could not be traced back to his gun, which is one of the things he did that was smart. But, like I said, he confessed anyways. So, he did a lot of this extra work just to turn himself in, is what I'm saying. And then after this victim, he took a break for a little over a year. And the main reason for this was because he didn't want police and authorities to suspect that he was somehow involved, and he didn't want to start being questioned about the murder and disappearance of this body and person. However, in 1974, he began killing on a monthly basis. And he didn't like messy killings. He just preferred a simple, I say simple, but gunshot wound to the head. He was paranoid about being caught. And then after he killed this one person, he put towels down in the bathroom to prevent blood from spilling all over the floor. Patrick Kearney was arrested on July 1st, 1977. And as of 2013, he is still imprisoned in the California State Prison. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. I don't really care. Subscribe if you're new. Comment down below videos you would like to see next and let me know your thoughts on this case. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!